We're live.
Welcome back, Chemistry Week. Okay, what we are going to do is, remember, you just have the word find in chemistry this on Monday, and Tuesday and Wednesday you're going to have worksheets. Okay, on the worksheet on Tuesday, it's the crisscross rule and the chemical formula. So basically what we want to make sure is the charges are equal on both sides. So one of the things I'm going to let you know is I sent home a periodic table, and I put the charges on your periodic table as hydrogen. Everything in this whole row is +1. Everything in this row is +2. Everything in this row is +3. This is a -3, -2, -1. You all should have in your packet that periodic table that tells you that. So it's -1, -2, -3, +3, +2, +1. Okay? So make sure when you're looking this up, you can look at that on your periodic table. Now, like I said, we want them to balance out. So if I have a 1 charge, a +1 on one side, I have to have a -1 charge on the other. So sodium's charge is +1. Fluorine's charge is a -1. I do a crisscross rule and a 1 and 1. If they're the same numbers, if it's 1 and 1 or if it's 2 and 2, you don't have to write the numbers. You just write the first two symbols of the elements. So in this case, I write it as NaF. Okay? Now I have barium, which is a 2+, oxygen is a -2. They balance each other out. They're the same number. I just write it as BaO. Okay? Now, if they are different, then that's where we start looking at the crisscross rule. So, sodium's a +1, oxygen's a -2. I crisscross this and bring the 2 over here and the 1 over here. Remember, we don't have to write the 1. So now I have Na2 and the O. So the 2 goes over here, and I write Na2O. Ba2, fluorine's a -1. That's the crisscross rule. Okay? Even if it's a bunch of elements or the same. So, you also reduce to the lowest terms. What that means is that the smartboard's not going to work. All right, so here in this case, I have aluminum 3+ and oxygen 2-. The 2 goes to the aluminum, the 3 goes to the oxygen, and I write it Al2O3. Crisscross rule with the charges. That's all you're doing. Okay? Same thing goes here. This is a 2+ and a -2. Both are the same charge, right? So once they're the same charge, we don't have to write that. We just write it as BaS. Okay? Anhydride and bromide. Crisscross rule. The 3 goes over here, the 1 goes over here. Remember, we don't have to write the 1. So then we just write it as InBr3. Okay?
Sounds good.
Now, on your worksheet, I've given you examples and wrote examples in on this already. So we just do the crisscross rule. So we look up the chemical symbol for chlorine, which is a -1, and a Cl and a +1. Both have a 1 and 1 charge, right? We just write this in as HCl. Okay? Now, I have NO3. That means this whole thing is a -1 charge. But 1 and 1, they cross out. We don't have to write them, right? So we write HNO3. That's done. Okay? Now, we have a compound here that has a 2, and this is a 1. The crisscross means the 2 goes with the hydrogen. We write it as H2. And then the 1 we don't have to write, so we write it as SO4. Okay? Now, here's another one. This is a 2 and this is a 1. So crisscross, H2S. Okay, same thing goes. This is a 2, so this would be H2CO3. Okay? Now this is a 3, so this would be an H3, PO4. Okay? Now, one other one that people sometimes have difficulty with what is the deal? All right, so now we have an ammonium, which is NH4 plus 1, and chlorine, which is a negative 1. 1 and 1, they cancel each other out, right? So we just write NH4 Cl. That's all we have to do. Same thing would go for the NO3. We just write NH4, and then we write NO3. Okay? Now, here again, 2 and 1. So this 2 goes with the NH4. So that's where we have to write the parentheses. NH4, and we have 2 of those in the parentheses. And then we just have the SO4. Okay? So that's the crisscross rule. You're just crisscrossing all of these over. So if you have calcium on the next line, it's 2 plus. 2 negative, cancels each other out, right? We just write it as CaS. Okay? Now we have 3 here and a 2 here. So we bring the 3 over to the calcium, and then we write with the parentheses PO4, there's 2 of those. That's what you're doing on this worksheet. You're crisscrossing these worksheets. Okay? Now, on the back side of your worksheet that you have on Tuesday, it's the same thing. They don't have any compounds, but you're just doing the same thing. You're writing lithium. You're basically doing this. HCl, NaCl. You're just writing it out on like that. So that's what you're going to do on the next worksheet. Now, how do we name those is even easier. On the front side of your worksheet for tomorrow, you're going to have to start naming these. So they're going to give you a chemical formula, NaF. Na is sodium, right? The first element, all you do is you write the name, sodium. Next one, barium. You just write barium. Sodium, sodium. Doesn't matter the numbers, you just write it. So we have barium again, barium. The only thing you do is, normally this is fluorine. Normally this is oxygen. Okay? The only thing you do is, you take those 3 last letters off and you replace it with IDE. That's it. So now this becomes sodium fluoride, barium oxide, sodium oxide, barium fluoride. If I were to say NaI, that would be sodium iodide. You just replace it with IDE instead of the INE. That's all you're doing on that front page is naming it. So the first name is the first element. The second name, you take off the last 3 letters and you put IDE. That's all you have to do.
That's not too hard.
Okay? That's your chemistry for the week. You won't have to do this again for another week after this because you only have 3 days. Okay? If you're doing biology, remember, get ready for your PowerPoint and your paper. That's all I have for you. Good luck.
Science!